What the hell am I doing? Honestly, sometimes I can be a real idiot, and I think today could be one of those days that I may well have bought a 911 Turbo that doesn't have a turbo. Welcome to the Car Guys. This week we've been a bit impetuous again. I'm on the way right now with car friend Tom. Say hello.
Hello.
To Silverstone to pick up a new car that I foolishly / cannily bought at auction at the Silverstone Classic. A 1989 930 Turbo Porsche 911. Absolutely mint car. Certainly is going to be a proud addition to the Car Guys garage. So I'm going to take you on a journey collecting that car, and then my first impressions driving it back. Here we are at Silverstone Auctions, and we're about to pick up the 930 Turbo, which is behind me. So we're going to sort out all the paperwork and make sure the car's paid for, and then we're going to drive it out for the very first time. We've just come across this LE, so an even more limited edition 911 Turbo, which hasn't actually sold at auction, so it's available now. So we're just having a look around that. It is a very special car, very limited edition. Still waiting for the bank funds to transfer. What a special place it is to be. I mean, it's classic 911, obviously, just like the 3.2 Carrera that I've already got. It's just such a gorgeous example of the turbo. This is one of the very last made. It's 5-speed as opposed to the 4-speed, which a majority were, but 1989 got the 5-speed G50 gearbox, which we already know is far better. And this is a pristine, unmarked, low mileage. It's done 29,636 miles. Probably the miles that I'm going to do taking it home it's probably the longest trip it's done in a very long time. I think this is going to be a fantastic drive. I'm really looking forward to this one. Situation update. It's very, 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 very hot. And the first thing that you notice is that this car's climate control does not work. The one thing this air conditioning is not doing is conditioning the air. Oh my god, it is so hot today. It's easily 30 degrees and I'm in a glass box with no air conditioning whatsoever. What the hell am I doing? Honestly, sometimes I can be a real idiot, and I think today could be one of those days. That's the first black mark for this car. Now obviously it feels like an old 911, a proper muscular wide body shell 911. It's a meaty feel, it's very physical. All the controls scattered across the dashboard. There's no rhyme nor reason to it. That's part of its charm. It's got a lovely Blaupunkt period stereo on this one. It's got the classic 911 bobble that you get on the front through not having that much weight. The big thing so far, having driven the car probably 30 miles, is it does not feel at all like the turbo is working. There's a dial that's showing you the pressure, the bar, down in the tachometer, and it doesn't really move that much at all, which means that perhaps the turbo on this 911 Turbo is not working properly or at all. And I have to say, acceleration wise, it does feel very, very slow, which, considering this car's reputation for being a real widowmakery, hard ride, full bore acceleration 911, it doesn't stack up. But I may well have bought a 911 Turbo that doesn't have a turbo. I am really annoyed at the moment. I'm quite annoyed with myself for buying a car yet again from an auction, being a bit impetuous. I know it's a beautiful example, and it's got all the history, and it's got all the toolbox, and it's got everything, and it's fastidiously owned. But in terms of a driving experience, it is not really delivering it. It's still a great car, but it looks like it's going to need some work. It's going to need someone to look at that turbo very carefully, and maybe it's going to need a new one. Damn it. Brakes do feel good though, which is reassuring when you're in a car that can do over 150 miles an hour. There's a slight wobble on the steering wheel. To be honest, the tyres looked properly ancient, so we might need some fresh rubber on this car, because particularly the rear ones were rock solid. I know that the previous owner, who had this car for 23 years, he has not done that many miles, and therefore probably hasn't changed those tyres for an awful long time. The clutch pedal's a little bit squeaky. Driving this now and having this sort of lack of turbo oomph, I sort of wish now that I bought the LE instead. Because with that car there was only 46 made, one for each dealer. It's a lot more of a limited edition car, so maybe I've made a huge mistake not buying that one and buying this one instead. But it's a sunny day. We are in a classic shape, classic looking 911, so it can't all be too bad. So we've got the 930 Turbo back to Car Guys HQ, and as you can see, it looks absolutely stunning and pristine. It is a perfect example of the breed. So this is what it's all about, the classic whale tail and the turbo badge, signifying that this is the range-topping 911 Turbo of the time. I've already taken it down to our friends at Emblem Sports Cars for a check over to find out what the issue was to do with the turbo, and at the moment we think it's something to do with the wastegate being jammed open. The climate control needs to be recharged and regassed, so again, not a big job. The very, very creaky haunted house clutch pedal, got to sort that out, give it a bit of lubrication. Oh yeah, and another issue that occurred actually when I took it down to Emblem was that the car wouldn't start at all. And what we've discovered is that the starter motor's sticking when the car is hot, which means that you can't drive it anywhere. And hopefully that's the only work that needs to be done, and it's just as a result, I think, of it being stored or not being used that much over its life. Old cars tend to get cranky, especially if they get laid up for long periods of time. So you've got to remember, this has only done 29,000 miles and it's a 30-year-old car, so there's not been a huge amount of driving, and it's been laid up and stored in good conditions, but it's been stored for a while. And what happens then is that things start to seize a little bit. The colour of this car is called linen, which is a very, very light metallic grey, almost silver, but quite a rare colour. It looks absolutely awesome with the black detailing. The Fuchs wheels on this car, as an option, they've been coloured exactly the same as the body colour, which again harmonises the whole thing. Classic whale tail, obviously. There's something about the stance of the proper turbos which is just so right. Wheels fill the arches, it's nice and low, it's got a good squat stance. The rear bodywork is obviously wider, so you've got that wide turbo body, synonymous with the 80s. This is without a doubt the best of the breed. The only turbo better than this is of course the LE model, which I could have also bought at the same auction. So let's tell you a little bit more about the 930 Turbo that we've got here. It is a classic view across those main dials. Tachometer, which in the case of the Turbo has a turbo boost gauge down below it. Oil pressure and temperature. Oil amount of oil in the car and the fuel on the left hand side. And then moving over to the right, you've got the speedometer and the clock. This car's got an optional sunroof, which I kind of preferred it not have. 0 to 60 at the time was 5.2 seconds and maximum speed was 160 miles an hour. How terrifying would that be in the 80s? So it's a flat 6 3.3 litre, or 3299 to be exact, and it generates 300 brake horsepower, which again in modern terms doesn't really sound that much. It also came with a hydraulic clutch, which made it a hell of a lot easier to actually press the clutch down because they are notoriously heavy on the left foot. The suspension was stiffened up all round, so it gives it a little bit of a firmer ride. The throttle response was improved as well, so that helped to reduce the classic turbo lag that the 911 Turbo's got. It only weighs 1,335 kilograms, so you know this is a small car. When you see it out on the road in traffic, you'll notice all the other cars around look massive compared to this. So it is a small car, it is a relatively light car, but it does pack a hell of a punch. Let's take you through some of the quirks of these old 911s. To open the bonnet, you come down here on the passenger side and you pull this little toggle. Turbos have got a particularly recalcitrant catch, which you've got to shove your fingers under, pull the catch aside and then lift it up. So you can see there a completely unmolested boot. It's perfectly lined, it's never really been messed with or tampered with. One of the things you should always look for in a 911 is the factory sticker, which you find there on the top of the bonnet. So you just lift up the bonnet and then inside you've got the details of the car. This just above it, above the air vent, is where you pull for the petrol filler cap. Nice and simple, logical on the side that it's supposed to be in. Room enough for 2 small adults in the back of a 911, which makes it even more practical. And you can even fold down those the tops of the seats to form a parcel shelf for additional luggage space. They've thought of everything, haven't they, these Germans? The engine compartment release is found on the passenger side on right-hand drive cars. So again, you just pull this toggle here to open up the rear. As Harry Metcalf showed us, you've got to lift the windscreen wiper on the rear screen before you open the boot lid. There it is, folks, 3.3 flat 6. So the turbo itself is down here underneath, so you can't really see that, but you can see how clean it is. All the right stickers are in all the right place for this classic edition. If you take or loosen the cap for the oil filler and you leave it off, it results in a very uneven idle, which some people think is engine related, but it's not. You just have to twist up the cap of the oil and bring the compression back. You have to remember, when this car came out in 1989, this was the pinnacle of the turbo technology that Porsche had perfected through motorsport. Today, these cars do feel a bit sluggish. I mean, there's no getting away from it. A 911 from the 80s is significantly slower than many modern cars, including hot hatches. But it's not just the outright speed that's the 911 magic. It's about the driving sensation. It's about the feeling through the steering wheel, your connection to the road. It's about the sounds and the smells, and it's about that pure driving experience, which Porsche has done so well since the mid-60s. Even though this car has some problems, it's still exciting. I've no doubt, with a little bit of fettling, this car will be a supreme driver's car once again. What do I think of this car? Well, there's no doubt it's one of the greats. It's one of the Porsche greats. This one obviously needs a little bit of TLC to bring it up to speed, but it has been sat for quite a long time and not used. It's been in a collection, so that's sort of to be expected. So I'm very pleased that we've added it to the collection. Does it mean I should be kept away from auctions in the future? Well, maybe, because the problem is you buy cars like this sight unseen, you trust the description, you trust that all the work's been done, that it's tip-top, and then you find a load of things wrong with it. So it's not the greatest feeling in the world. It's a bit annoying, if I'm to be honest, because I'd like to be out here in the sun enjoying this car to the full, but them's the brakes, so we've got to get it sorted. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this collection video of the 930 Turbo from Silverstone Auctions. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride, but you never know what you get into when you do auction purchases. Please subscribe, leave likes and comments. I'd love to know your auction experiences. I'd love to know whether you think I've done the right thing buying this car, and should I be forced to stay away from auctions for the foreseeable future. We'll see you soon.